until vector databases can be managed by a DevOps team, I think we are not there yet. Challenges on keeping it live, up to date, refreshed, commonplace. I think this is one area where advancements are definitely needed.
Hey friends, this is me Vishwas and I'm the host of this podcast. Right now, vector DBs were never a buzzword. It already existed in the industry somehow or the other, but we now started adopting it the right way because there are a lot of use cases that are coming up, not just in the AI world, but everywhere. I was amazed that, somewhere down the line, Elasticsearch was a vector search platform and we never knew that, and we were using it over a course of time. It had ML integrated in it, and those who are DevOps folks, you should be knowing that you still did ML for a while when you are using Elasticsearch. And I think there's a lot of things that are coming up out there in the market. I'm with two of my guests, Shalini and Shirsha, who is going to give you a lot of insights about how the technology is revolutionizing or re-evaluating the way we thought about something called as a database in the field of ML and AI. And thank you so much to my dear guest for being on the show. Means a lot.
Thanks, Vishwas. I'm Shirsha, like you said, and I'm part of Thomson Reuters Labs here in Bangalore. We are doing some really exciting work with generative AI, and vector databases feature in a big way there. Shalini, over to you.
Hi, thanks, Vishwas. I'm Shalini, and I'm also working with Shirsha in Thomson Reuters as research engineer. Yeah, we are working on vector DB. That's the topic, our topic for today.
Right. All right. Let's get the first question started. There's a lot of things that's going on in the market, right? Vector DB was never there, but now it's getting talked over and over. I think people are writing more blogs, people are researching on it in a more extensive fashion. So let's understand what is the revolution that vector DB can bring on the table, and what's the transformative way that we can handle such kind of an hefty scaled application that vector DB can really give out in the market. Like vector DB is something new, so you can start by introducing it and also say how it's going to revolutionize the way in the industry today.
Sure. So when we talk about vector DB, DBs in general, the traditional way of DB was SQL, and no SQL, where we had schema, tables, we stored a lot of structured data, I will say. And the mechanism of retrieving that data was based on those keywords and having a lot of complex queries to get the data out of the database. But now, after with the rise in the machine learning, there is new type of data type called a vector, which is nothing but a list of floats, and it contains much more meaning than just a keyword. It has the semantic meaning also when we talk about it, and it is little bit different than what we have in structured data. So it needs a different kind of indexing because databases makes the search fast for us by indexing and querying through that indexes. But vector is in multidimensional space. It will not be as same as the text that we use. It's kind of embedding in multidimensional space, and with that help of multidimensional space, we are able to say whether how close are two sentences or how close are two images are there. For that, we need a special kind of similarity algorithms. We need special kind of indexing, and we need special kind of retrieval system. Yeah, for this, a lot of algorithms have been developed, but there was nothing like a totally dedicated system or database towards vectors. So this is what has been a rise. Due to this, vector DB came into a picture, and as you said, many blogs and many companies are looking into it. Also, there is a statistic like Sequoia company told that like 88% of the company feels that vector DB will be a core part of their tech stack. Because as you know, unstructured data is growing day by day, and this will be only giving fuel to the vector DB. And as we all know about LLMs are also a huge part of us now, and vector DB actually helps it a lot in fueling that, and Yeah. So this is the vector DB is like a managed service, and you can manage a huge amount of data with it, and it will be no, there will be lightning fast performance with vector DB, and it is so easy to scale, and there is no complex queries when you want to retrieve the data with it. So you can retrieve a data with in a lightning fast speed with a vector DB. That's
Sure. I think there has been a lot of talk that is going on in the market, right? While people really appreciate the effectiveness that it brings on the table, there's always an new innovation that happened, that is LLMs. That means
Yeah.
everybody wants to learn about LLMs today. Everybody is betting on it today. So let's just talk about, I think Shisha can talk about it. I think there's a lot that we have to understand whether vector DB came first, or else did the LLMs really pioneer the way towards the vector DB. So let's understand which came first, like the chicken and
Yeah.
egg problem. So this is still
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
chicken and egg problem statement.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
which came first? Is it the vector DB, or is it the LLMs in the market that is just taking a lot of boom right now?
Yeah. So Vishwas, I can give you the one word answer, but I want to add, layers to my answer, right? So I think today, as things stand, right, like vector databases, the concept of vector databases, the way what Shalini described, is benefiting hugely from the spotlight that LLMs are under today, right? LLMs need, vector databases to have that concept of a memory to serve the sort of answers that people are seeking from a business point of view, right? I doubt LLMs could be able to do that if not for a concept like vector database. So today they need each other, but I couldn't help dig into the history of vector databases, right? And it seemed like it dates back to the time when people started to do the whole gene sequencing, right? So this is way back, I think in 1970s or so, when we were still trying to understand proteins, we were still trying to understand DNA, right? So back then, I think to store data and in a related form is what we started to look at, the whole concept of vectors, right? And storing them as they were. Since information was not so humanly readable, it needed to be stored in a mathematical way, right? So that's when I would say, the whole concept of vectorizing and storing it that way really started, which would then mean that it started well before the whole large language model rage. But today, needless to say that, one needs the other for sure.
Yes, I think yes, because a lot of times when I still remember that, the tensor mathematics, when TensorFlow 2.0 was coming on 2019, I
Yeah.
was in college and everybody told me, man, it's dimension, it's the
Yeah.
magnitude that is
Yeah.
getting added, a lot of other stuff. And I'm like, it's still the no free lunch theory for me, right? It's like
Yeah.
go out there, figure out what's happening, and just come
Yeah.
back and deliver the work.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
what it
Yeah.
was. I
Yeah.
think LLMs are really
Yeah.
taking a lot. So now
Yeah.
let's
Yeah.
come to the potential of and the challenges which it can solve. I think there's a huge opportunity which businesses can have today. It's just like how quantum computing can be in finance, vector DBs can be in everywhere. So
Yeah.
it's something that we are talking in the market right now. So what are the biggest challenges and the opportunities for the business in leveraging vector DB and how to maximize it? Because there are so many resources. As I said, everybody's writing one or the other blog, but there's nothing called as a structured block to it, or else a
Yeah.
structured way to approach it. So what's the challenges and the opportunities that any business or a use case can have today? I think Shalini can take this question.
Yeah, sure. You are right. Like vector DB is everywhere. I can say that. Like databases, you can store anything into it. And when we talk about unstructured data, it can be images, it can be audio, it can be text. You can store. There is no limitation on it. So every industry can use it, like finance or law or healthcare system. Every industry can use it, and it's a huge thing. Like we can see the investments in the vector DB space, and it's huge. Opportunities, if I talk about like earlier, when these managed services were not there, huge companies like Facebook, Spotify had made their own kind of algorithms around this for searching, efficiently searching these. Like if I talk about Spotify, it was Annoy, and Faces for Facebook. But what is the problem that these are open source and you can use it, but it doesn't scale so well when you have a lot of data. It is good for a POC and all, but for productionizing, it's not so well. Still, you can use that algorithm with the with picture vector DB, which are coming in open source as well as in cloud in as managed services. You can see that it's a lot easier now to like scale that solution and still use those algorithms with it. And you can this is really an opportunity for every business, even a small business to a large scale business, to use the vector DB. When I think about challenges, there are different kind of challenges for different companies which are in different stages. If I talk about a well established company, their challenge will be to transform their processes, to see how much they need the vector DB. Obviously they need, but do they need for as a complement to the traditional database, or they want to replace it? Do they have a real time, because it's very fast, so do you need for real time like performance, or you can expect a delay? It's okay for having a delay. Then you can look for another solutions also. How much cost, how much queries you are going to get, and to transform the system is itself a challenge. Like to everything transform, wherever the database, traditional database is getting used, you have to change that. So it's a really big challenge, I feel, for huge companies. And for smaller companies, still there are many services provided by vendors, as you said. Like there are a lot of blogs on it, and still you have to do a comparisons. There are some websites where you can see between comparisons between algorithms, but you have to still, for your use case, you have to see what kind of service you want, and you have to adopt that. There is no set benchmark as of now, because still new for industries which are taking use of it. So this is a not a major challenge, which is good for adopting vector DB, but still it comes with change, and change is a little bit challenging at starting phase, at least initial phase, to change the services which existed before vector databases. Or you were saying like Elasticsearch. If somebody is having already Elasticsearch, and Elasticsearch has ANN algorithms, and but it is not totally a vector database, we can say. So you have to make a step there. You have to think about it, your choices, uh, if you want metadata to be associated with it or not. These all things I feel are the decisions you have to make, instead of challenges, which makes your process smooth.
Yes, I think there is a lot of things that we need to consider when we think adapting vector DB, because normally when the schema changes in any database, it's a blunder. It's a blunder, like, man, I thought something and I designed the schema and suddenly we are supposed to change it. And if the production downtime goes up, I think probably it's going to affect a lot of businesses out there. So I think this is something that small businesses can't afford, right? Changing to them at that rapid speed. There's a saying in the world of technology that startups are taking on giants. That's true because they are too young and they can be more agile. But there are some non-big tech companies. I think we can talk about it. I think Shisha can talk about it, where there is a non-big tech player who just wants to adapt to a vector DB now. How will you see the landscape of non-big companies adapting this technology and making an impact in the way their business logic flows and what they see happening in the market? Because vector DB is fine, but as long as their business use cases are not ready to drive vector DBs, I think that doesn't make any sense. But it's good to have adapt quicker. So how will it basically enable business transformations? Because fundamentally, when I think, even if my production goes down by an hour or so, if I'm a B2C company, sorry for that. I am not supposed to be doing that at any cost. So there are a lot of challenges that comes up with it. So How do you see it, Srisha? And how do you also want small tech companies to adapt it?
Yeah. So I think I want to, go back to that point that you mentioned, right? Or rather, maybe generalize it a bit. Whenever there is any new technology which comes by, right? What does it take for your typical DevOps engineer to be a pro at it? Right. And that's the journey, I believe, that's still pending for something like vector database. So it is truly novel. It is, transforming the way search can work. It is transforming not just search, but several other, business problems that earlier even with state of the art ML, I think the transformation was slow, let me put it that way, right? And now it's even more rampant. Vector databases, like Shalini alluded, they're really powerful and can, with its capabilities, can really totally transform the way most of our business workflows use data today, right? But like you said, there's this whole flow to operationalizing it that is still, for me, a big gap. And there are players who are trying to get to it. There is big tech as well. I mean, like the cloud players and other big technology players who are trying to keep up and give in their best shot at an operational platform for vector databases, including companies which will help you do the managed services for it. But the way I read it, even from blogs, it is still very developer speak. It is still research. It is still, yes, we will operationalize it, but each problem that comes up still needs a lot of engineering investigation to figure out how to sort it. So that playbook state, right? Okay, if it is this, then maybe this is what needs to be configured. So we are not in that playbook state. We are not in a state where we can hand off that ecosystem to a DevOps engineer like yourself, right? So I feel that's the big gap, but nonetheless, the power is there that something with large language models with vector databases can be truly business transformational, and every tech provider out there is looking to capitalize on this, right? Be it a software provider, B2B or B2C, like you said, everyone's looking to leverage it for numerous business use cases, and it's almost at a stage that you must have now, right? You must have features. So there's this whole, I think, need for speed to operationalize this, and until that happens, I think non-big tech players, it's a little gray, it's still a little fuzzy. I mean, how can they confidently adopt vector databases, whichever be the brand, right? Be it I think maybe Shalini will tell you a few that we've experimented with, or we've studied about. So irrespective of which state of the art vector database technology you're talking about, I think the whole gap of the journey that relational databases, the journey even big data has undergone, is just about starting off a vector database. It's probably a function of time, but perhaps it will be accelerated with all the attention that large language models are giving to it. But I mean, like I said, right, I will have to repeat myself that until vector databases can be managed by a DevOps team, I think we are not there yet.
I think that's true. That's true, because fundamentally, when the system has to go up and running, and it's still APIs at the end of the day to me.
Yep.
As a developer who goes out there, figure out, okay, this is the way that I'm going to put in the data. This is the way I'm going to make sure that the data is going to be transactional from my system to somebody's system who is a user or is a business out there. So there are a lot of use cases that are coming up. I think there's a lot of contributions that are going on, right? There are groundbreaking advancements that we are seeing today, but there is a lot that we can actually predict, because to me, when I read AlexNet paper, I was like, okay, this was the first beginning where 2012 was the beginning of usage of GPUs. And right now we have seen different models on different use cases, like there are breast nets that are specific to breast cancer. So there are a lot of advancement that I've been seeing, and there are a lot of open source technologies also coming in. So there's a lot that we have to demystify. So how do you see the advancement of vector DB as a technology in another 5 years? Or else, how is it going to impact somebody else's production over a course of time. So I think Shalini, over to you.
Yeah, I would like to take a point from Shisha, what Shisha said earlier, that still it's not ready to hand over to DevOps and do. I feel that a lot of best practices and how different application communicate to each other with in along with Vector DB still needs to be there. And these are things which will take place, I think, in few months as we see how revolutionizing it is. Due to that, it would be very fast. And as of now, if you see, there are Postgres vectors, PG vectors are coming up. So in traditional databases, you can also see they are coming up with these kind of things. So soon it will not be a very special kind of thing, but it will be integrated in every traditional databases. It will not be a dedicated vector database, but you can still go with it and have a faster solution for your data. And still you can have your structured data with your vector databases. And as well as we know how much cloud impacts the technology, there is a cloud adoption now also, but I see major companies will adopt cloud of vector db, as they don't have to take it's managed by the cloud, and they don't have to take tension for infrastructure and all, because as the data grows, infrastructure is a huge problem for many companies. There will be as of now also there is support for a lot of media, like I said, images and audio, but I feel there will be much more advancement in this side. Like you can store the different kinds of embedding, and there still there are some research going on, like how we can make efficiently training of ml models and also inference fast with the vector db. And I feel that it will play a huge part in making deep learning or llm on steroids. Like it will work very great with this. And if we talk about like hallucination, there is a lot of talks going on, like llm is hallucinating and all. And there are major investments going in this area also, like how we can stop that. And I think vector db will play a huge role. uh, and there is a lot of applications of vector dbs are coming. As of now, I have heard I have read a I can say application of it for a company, which I would like to say here. Like one of the company is like chipper money or something. What they did, they are actually a financial tech company. They transfer money across the borders for Africa, and they have around 5 million users, and it's a big company there. So what they do is that for to attract new users, they get the promo code they launch for the new users to attract them. And they give some promos like buy this much stock within a week. When you register, you will get this much amount, like that. So what this also attracted, that people started to find loopholes with that. And they will try to re-register with different they will provide the same id, will try to re-register, or with the fraud ids they will try to re-register. So company really lost around 16% of their budget for this promo thing. So what they came up with, that they will hire a third party service, and they will that company will do the KYC of the customers. And this actually helped them to get right user, right set of users. But as the user set grows, this time of KYC became like 20 minutes. So for an actual user, this was not a good experience, like to wait for 20 minutes just to sign up. And really at that in that 20 minutes, the fraud users were able to get the promo code, and they were able to fraud the company, I can say that. So what they did, that they knew that they have to go with something with machine learning to make this 20 minutes to really 2 seconds. So what they did actually, that they whatever data they had, they converted that photos of the id into embedding using a convolutional network. And this they stored, because they had a huge number of users, they stored this in vector db. And then when they did this offline, when the new user is coming, they are making that converting that into embedding, and try to see the similarity using the algorithms of vector db. and they research this, which algorithm will be okay for them and all this. And really it reduced to 200 millisecond to identify whether a person is already existing or using a fraud identity. And it was really big for that company. That company saved around 16% of their budget with this. And with the elimination of third party, they even use that budget for promo code. And it was really huge, like for the user experience as well. As so we can see how as of now only vector db is impacting um, huge these things were existing, like semantic similarity or the similarity between the medias, but on a huge scale for a company like this which hires a third party for the this investigation type of thing. This will be huge, and we will be in next 5 years we will be seeing much more than this in our industry.
All right, that's a very nice answer. The company's saving a lot of money because there was an enablement done through a machine that's still automated and that's still doing its job right. I think that's fantastic. So I think Shisha, you have some more applications to talk about, or else you can just give out a pseudo application where we can think, hey man, this is the potential of vector DB and we can move towards it right away.
Yeah. I won't say an application, Vishwas, but I think, when you say groundbreaking advancements, and I don't know if, 5 years is the time, but may happen much faster than that because there is the pressing need, right? The pressing need is to have something more formalized. Now, how cut back to, let's say, maybe 7-8 years back, even the best of tech companies had different systems, right? You had your transactional systems, you had your analytical systems, and they leveraged unique data layer solutions, right? And then, of course, you had the whole data lake and the data warehouse to back it all off. But then your analytical reporting, as well as your data science and analysis, happened on a very different form of database structure compared to where your business transactions were taking place. It's still the case in many places, but it's possible that most companies have today maybe brought it down to, even if you're operating in two different environments, you may have a consistent common layer. Now data still seem to be that it flows through systems and may have its own challenges in that, right? Now as it goes through to the whole vector database space, and as we've already heard from Shalini, numerous ways, small as well as medium and big companies are going to be able to leverage vector databases and have amazing business transformation ideas, but they still need to be able to handle the whole flow of data between systems, right? Should it all come together as a single platform? Should it all be siloed environments but still allow for refresh between data sets? These are, I think, tech questions which are still out there, and like I said, unlikely it is going to wait for 5 years. It's going to be much well before that. But for truly this technology to go to next gen and become more commonplace, I think this is one area where advancements are definitely needed. And of course, we've all I think repeated about the whole DevOps thing, right? So what are metrics, what are challenges on keeping it live, up to date, refreshed? I think we were investigating how can we have like a cache layer over a vector database so that the frequently used parts of the data for a particular season or for a particular span of time window, we may want to have, like, to avoid hotspotting, we may have a cache, right? How do you design, how do you plan for it? So these are still, like I said, advancements are definitely needed in this space for us to be confident about an approach. I mean, I think still it is very whiteboarding. It's still, let's try this phase, right? And that's one obstacle, I would say, which needs to be definitely the same. And now coming to your point where you're saying, right, like, is it possible for us to force the applications as more and more business workflows start to leverage it? I think things like anomaly detection, things like, what happened when, like, the whole blockchain view of, let's say, the flow of a certain document or transactions. I think all of that, the temporal aspects, if you have to view that with vector database, is going to be very groundbreaking, as you mentioned, right? Similarly, I think there are similar groundbreaking advancements which I can sort of see the behind a mist, of course, but that this can be possible in the space of, say, healthcare. It's possible in the space of financial fraud or other forms of fraud, right, where you will be able to leverage vector database powered searches, and the whole concept of storing vectors, right, will itself draw attention to something which is not fitting the pattern, right? It lends itself to that, what's in the pattern and what's unusual, and hence those sort of use cases will definitely benefit from it. It becomes more commonplace to be able to spot these transactions, which are not your run of the mill, which is a merchant which is behaving little unusual, right? So all of this will become, I think, more commonplace. We'll not even talk about, like, we don't talk about search. I mean, search is there, yes, we can do search. So like that, I think these use cases will also gain momentum, including, I have read that there are many companies, maybe, and again, maybe this is big tech, who already leverage vector databases for product recommendations, but maybe that can become even more interesting. Let's talk about your world, Vishwas, DevOps, where you want to quickly triage problems, root cause. Even in that space, I think vectorizing logs, events, metrics will definitely help us triage much faster, right?
Oh man, I think I want to become a data scientist again. I really had some opportunities. I just left there and I just became a DevOps guy. And today I am like, man, I should become a data scientist back. I think
I
probably
would
I'm,
say you
I'm
stay
on
there.
an endeavor to do that. I think probably I'll do that. So I think there's a lot of considerations that has to be done, right? We face many problem statements, not just because of logs or tracing or else any other matrices that I have to measure in order to understand my system. There is a lot of consideration. Even
Yep.
if I want to put a component inside my production, I have to make sure that, okay, my team is ready. My developers are much more, what to say, they can dabble around it at any given point of time. Even if there are no DevOps team there, probably there is going to be one guy who can click something and make the production up and running again. So that's the kind of an approach that we always have, right? We want it to be more team friendly. Team has to adapt it quicker. Team has to be more educated about it. So there's a lot of considerations that we have to do. What are the considerations, are the key considerations that you think the developer team and the data scientist team need to make sure that they go through in order to adapt vector DBs the right way? Because it's an enhancement of a database system that they never saw, but now they are putting in a new jargon onto their own system. Whole system was just SQL back then, querying it out the data, putting it back to an API. So there's a lot of considerations that we have to do. What are the considerations that you feel that are key to this industry, in order to any industry considered, not just data science or fintech, any industry considered? What are the key things that they need to consider in order to adapt vector DB the right way? I think Shalini, you can go with this question.
Yeah, so I feel vector DB is really great when you have to really know when you need it. So it's new, it's giving advantage. That's not the reason to apply it. So where you need a needle, you don't need a sword. So that's the thing. So first is the necessity or the requirement of the vector DB, because there are still many algorithms there. If you have a low amount of data that you want to process, you don't need vector DB then. You can go with other options. Or it's also, if whether you are already having a traditional database like Postgres, or you are using something system like Elasticsearch, so you already have some ANN there. Can you work with it? What are the advantages going from this system to that? Because it will have a lot of tech depths when you go from kind of system to another kind of system. Once you are you are feeling that yes, we need vector DB, you have to see how you will transform your infrastructure around it. How do you, as I said, do you want to complement it, or do you want to go only with vector databases? What's your solution is like? And I feel in most of the cases we want to complement it to the traditional database, because we still want that structured text as of now, to show it to the end user or something. Whether it is required in your case or not, how will your if you're working on something like LLM, which is a lot of use cases are coming there, so whether you want to use it for contextual searching or not, which will give a long term memory to LLM. You want to do the prompt injection at the runtime, like you can store the features in the vector DB, and at runtime you can give the new features to the LLM to produce the result. So how you are going to use it? There are lots of algorithms around vector DB, like how the ANN algorithm will actually work. So you need to consider those, and what kind of latency will it bring, what kind of, there is always a trade-off so with each algorithm. So you kind of have to know that what kind of trade-off will it bring to your with your data. There are a lot of benchmarks for the ANN algorithms along with it. You want to know how much scalable your data will be. So how you want to actually set up the infrastructure. Even if it is managed service, you got to know how you will cluster and how will you store the data, how many cluster you need. These kind of things, I think a developer or a data scientist should know. Yeah, and if I think, yeah, that's it. Mhm.
I think there's a lot of checklist. I think the checklist is unknown to me as well, because fundamentally, when it was just a month stack, it was not just month stack just coming into your system. It's basically cloud operations that are coming into the system, and maintaining the stack is something that is huge task, right? The code has to be not being out there in the world, right? You have to have a lot of security checks, security practices. There are so many other stuff that are coming just for the developers. Just imagine the guy who really takes care of an infrastructure. So I think in one of the Srisha's talk, there was an mentioning of some components of how we automate an MLOps practice with respect to, not just because we have some frameworks, we also have to think about how we have an existing tool and how we have an existing technology in order to enable it. So I think she can add some more points about how to never break your production, which has an existing business logic running, and now make sure that you adapt quicker. I think she can share some checklists. This is
This is
something
going
maybe.
back to the whole MLOps itself, right? Like, while the solutions which embed ML in them are a little different, because there's the whole data which is new in that ecosystem, right? Unlike your usual software solution, which is more repeatable and consistent in its output. With a solution which has ML in it, I think with the new data coming in each time, it's possible that there is inconsistency in its output. But I think the whole point was, when you're looking at monitoring solutions which have ML in them, the KPIs that you must adhere to should remain the same, right? Any production system you were talking about, right? The sort of typical DORA metrics that are there, they are of course there. You may have additional metrics which come in based on the observations that you make around the performance of the model itself, but they are still, how do I say this, secondary maybe to your system being up. And to your system being up, those original DevOps metrics continue to remain primary. So the same model, if I were to apply here, if your vector database is important for one of your business use cases, then your primary KPIs around your any other DevOps KPIs that you may have for any other database, they remain the same here. Right, your uptime is primary. Your search SLA is primary. How up to date your data is still important to your database performance. Maybe you will have additional metrics which is needed around the upkeep and maintenance of a solution, like vector database, and I think what those are still, to be absolutely honest, that's still like an area of research for me. I'm still studying, what should I keep an eye on in case I want to be able to be sure that my vector database is going to give the performance I'm expecting from it. So I think that's an area still, I would say, coming up, Vishwas. These are those gaps that I was saying, right? Once we're able to crack it, I'm sure there will be platforms which let you maintain and govern, the use of vector database. We didn't even talk about ethics and governance. So, is everybody allowed to search everything, even if they are coming through the golden gate of LLM? No, right? So there are authentication, there are roles which will have access to certain kind of data and not. There are subscriptions likely, where as a product you don't want to give access to all kind of content, right? So how are those aspects handled with something like a vector database? I think there are concepts which are in place. I think these need to be refined and hardened for sure. Right. So these are, I think, still areas of research, not just research. I think, we are dabbling in it. So we'll see how these get formed up over time.
So I think developers' journey always starts with, are there any alternatives to the vector DB right now? And there's always a chance that even though we adapt vector DB, there's a concept called as chaos engineering even in DevOps. We induce chaos wantedly in order to make sure that we test out our architecture or the capacity planning, that is it good enough to handle that kind of a load. There's a lot of things that goes on. So I think both of you can take this question, like, what are the alternatives in the market that anybody and everybody can dabble around, whether it's open source or else anything which is in the perspective of enterprise as well, because there are a lot of support that gets attached with when you buy an enterprise support as well. And also, can vector DBs create a chaos? Can the search go horribly wrong? Because fundamentally, even if it was an querying out a database, there are so many things that we as a human being can induce a lot of errors. And we are now trying to induce the search mechanism to a machine which we have built, and that's going to do a lot of other intelligent stuff out there. So let's break into the parts. So the alternatives that we can work towards, or else the components that are already available in the market, and can this entire ecosystem of vector DB be flawless one day where there's nothing called as, oh man, this is the search that we didn't want to happen, but this happened. So I think, Shalini, you can take this question first, and then we can move to Shiksha. So here you go. The tools that are available in the market, and can this entire technology go wrong one day?
Tools available in market, if I take, like, you have Milvus, you have Pinecone, you have VV8, Chroma. There are various kind of companies which are coming with the vector database. And I feel there are various uses of these things. Like Pinecone can give you some out of the box machine learning algorithms embed in them, so you don't have to do a lot of processing on your side, or you have to do some coding on your side. It's like you store your data, you apply some ML algorithms on it. So you can actually see your data in play. You can do some data analytics with it, real-time data analytics, and you can also have your data up to date. So that's one of the things that in the industry you have daily a lot of data generated, or per hour a lot of data generated. So you can have those things. So yeah, different vector DBs in the market are giving different things to you. So you have to check for that. And if you say something's horribly going wrong, I feel it can lose sometimes context, like depending on the industry and what kind of embedding you are using especially. So you might have to switch the whole embedding you are using, like what kind of model you are using for embedding. The data, like as we were talking about ML ops, and we have to monitor the model. It may go out of context, there will be data drift. So the older data, does it make sense now? There are newer models coming in market. Does it giving better embedding on my data? So these things we have to look, but it can go wrong if some things like that comes up which the older data which is from vector db it is coming doesn't make sense in current scenario if scenarios change. So that's one of the scenario that is coming in my mind that can go wrong.
I've read quite a bit about what can go wrong with vector databases, Vishwas, and I can share a few points there. I think the starting point, and I think most of what I'm telling you is what I've read from authors who are predominantly from startups. Right, I'm not sure if big tech is talking about it yet. So, from startups, I have heard folks talk about the huge amount of challenge around flexibility, right, that vector databases do not provide today. So if you've done it in one way, if you have to reload it midstream, then there's the whole aspect of bringing it up all over again. Right, so there's that. But even otherwise, right, so let's say if you've not done such rash behavior with a vector database, I think scalability is still something which is not so state of the art with even the best of vector databases. Likely in the next 2 weeks, we will see something which already is giving us stats around scalability. But as far as I've heard from my startup friends, right, I think this is still an area of challenge, and hence this can go very wrong. So if they are like looking to acquire new data set, right, so they then are challenged by how do I scale this horizontally, vertically. So it's still, they still need to work with people who originally built the vector database to understand how can I still get the performance while being able to double my data. Performance is also not always consistent, right. I mean, the whole similarity search itself, right, sometimes it might require specialized hardware or perhaps software to actually give you consistently that sort of performance as was originally seen, let's say, right. And this could also mean a lot of cost challenge for, especially for a small company, or even for that matter, let's say you brought in the whole LLM vector database based ecosystem to actually drive business transformation. And if your cost is going up midstream, then you're going to not like the outcomes from that at all. And I think we spoke about flexibility, and flexibility not just from having to do developer tasks, but also from somebody who's investigating and operationalizing the system. It's not, it will not lend itself to your tooling yet, right, your tool chain that you may have already. So it still needs fair amount of deep technical expertise to use effectively in its best way, and to keep it up to date and operate it, right. And I think that also means that maintenance is somewhat of a challenge. It could go wrong where how do you, if there is an outage, if something is not working, something got corrupted, you, in order to get back the system, is still, I think, it can go horribly wrong. I mean, to your question of what can go horribly wrong, these are some, and I think as a person who's been trying to work with others who are building solutions, I feel like the talent itself, right, the engineers, the scientists, the DevOps folks who have to work with solutions with vector database need to familiarize themselves, right, to understand the under the hood of it a little more. So there's a whole talent upskilling around the whole vector database ecosystem, which is also sort of a challenge, and it can go wrong if you don't do it in a timely manner, right.
Yeah, I truly agree with you, because moving from one DevOps tool to me to another obviously has a lot of impact in the way I'm productive, because there is a new concept altogether that is coming in. Hey man, there's this kind of a token that I need to put in, this kind of a tenant ID I need to put in. There are so many things that comes up with a new tool. Just imagine when I have to scale my system out there, where this is something new, where people are yet to figure out, and I am betting on this technology. I think there's a lot that can go wrong. Yes, I think this podcast is probably an ultimate cheat sheet for anybody who want to start VectorDB as their whole.
Or for that matter, Vishwas, any new technology which comes, right, the journey that it has to take from a GitHub project to an operational system in your DevOps world, I think is a journey that I think we should almost bookmark, right? And make a run book out of it, that this will be the step to it, right?
That's
Yep.
true. That's true. I think there's a lot that we have to talk about, and there's a lot that we have to experience in order to build this technology right. And thank you so much, Risha. Thank you so much, Shalini, for being on the show. Means a lot. I think
Yep.
the years of experience that you folks have been dabbling around with all the ML models and whatever the AI algorithms that is there in the market, I think probably that's huge. And when you guys share that experience out there, that makes a lot of impact. And thank you so much.